everyone, I'm Mark Kugler and I'm the stream technician here at the Otsego County Soil and Water Conservation District. Thank you for attending this year's virtual farm tour. As with many things in our current lives, having a virtual farm tour is very different from how we've done things in the past, but we hope you enjoy what we've put together. Throughout my presentation, I'm going to showcase some of the work that I do. I'll discuss why I do it and how my work is made possible. A lot of the work that I do here at the district involves riparian forest buffers. Among the many benefits these buffers provide include helping to absorb excess nutrients, helping to stabilize soils, and reducing the effects of erosion and sedimentation. Being located in Otsego County presents me with a unique opportunity to not only protect the valuable resources we have in our county, but also to protect the Chesapeake Bay. In 2010, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency developed a comprehensive pollution diet for the Chesapeake Bay. Known as the Chesapeake Bay Total Maximum Daily Load, or TMDL, this plan encompasses a 64,000 square mile watershed that includes portions of 6 states and the District of Columbia, and it sets limits on nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment pollution necessary to meet water quality standards within the Chesapeake Bay and its tidal rivers by the year 2025. The necessity for this plan, which is the largest of its kind, was prompted by decades of nutrient and sediment pollution that led to poor water quality, degraded habitats, and significantly reduced populations of fish and shellfish within the bay and its tidal waters. Since the inception of the Chesapeake Bay TMDL, our district has worked through a variety of funding sources with numerous stakeholders to implement the planting of nearly 80 acres of riparian buffers throughout the county. This riparian buffer in Cherry Valley is one of the largest we have planted ourselves and is adjacent to a concentrated animal feeding operation dairy farm. A lot of work went into planning and planting this buffer, and I'm proud to say that every tube you see along the stream contains a living tree inside it. By next summer, many of the tubes will be ready for removal as they will have aided trees in growing above the height where deer can no longer browse them. In 2016 through 2017, the EPA conducted a review to evaluate how each jurisdictional area was making progress towards attaining reductions in nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment loads. This review concluded that overall considerable progress had been made in reducing pollution in measurable ways. However, there is still a lot of work that remains if we want any hope in achieving our ultimate reduction goals. New York, for instance, met its 2017 target reduction in phosphorus load, but fell short in its target reductions for nitrogen and sediment. It has been estimated that New York's portion of the Bay watershed would need to double its annual rate of agricultural implementation to attain the 2017 goal for nitrogen reduction, and will need to do even better than that to attain our end goal in 2025. That brings me to my final pitch, which is how we are able to conduct the valuable and necessary work that we do. Partnerships. Without our partner agencies and organizations, we would not be able to complete nearly as many projects as we do. This particular project is on Otsego Creek in Mount Vision, and through a partnership with the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service, we were able to leverage funding to complete a bank stabilization project, including stream barbs and a riparian buffer. The landowner has been very happy with the outcome of this project, and Otsego Creek is better off for it. So thank you all for your time, and let's keep up the good work.
The Beecher Farm at Morrell, New York, and I want to introduce you to Jim Beecher, owner and operator of this farm. And Jim, you want to talk about your family and cow numbers and cropland acres and a little bit of history?
Yeah, my father, my mother, and I bought the farm in 2000. We moved here from another farm down in Coventry, New York. And this farm was a little bigger. We wanted to expand a little bit. Here we're milking 120 cows. At our previous farm we were at 70, so we wanted to get a little bigger. We cropped about 268 acres of land, this farm, and stuff. So a little better land than our previous farm, and more land. And,
What was some of the first things you recognized coming onto the farm?
Resource concern with the heifer barn. He had problems. The previous tenant had problems with manure from the heifer barn, I guess, running into the stream, so we had to correct that problem. We worked with an RCS and putting a pad behind the heifer barn and stuff. That worked out really well.
Yeah, and that was accompanied by a concrete curb, so when you're able to clean up, the manure is able to be contained on the pad and did not create that manure flow right to Calhoun Creek, which is a classified trout stream. It's a wonderful resource you have on your property. And we also installed roof gutters and underground outlets. One of the biggest objectives of these projects is to keep clean water clean. And in order to do that, we install our practice roof runoff management, either by roof gutters and or crushed stone drains and outlet to a clean water, a surface water. So that worked really well down there, and you're able to manage it and maintain it very nicely.
Yep.
Do you feel like these BMPs have been in long enough to really be able to answer how they've improved your day-to-day operation? It's gonna work.
Still, and we had a manure storage before,
Right.
just that this is a better,
So it's not really a big change, really, then.
right, other than we got longer storage where I don't have to spread Thanksgiving time and then worry about spreading end of March, beginning of April. I can let it go when the crops can use it, but
So as Jim stated earlier, when they moved on the farm in 2000, they realized very quickly they had a resource concern, and there was manure coming from the slatted grates in the heifer barn down through the grates, and there was a manure flow to Calhoun Creek that is right adjacent to the farmstead, and it is a classified trout stream. Applying for EQIP and did get funded. It was a high priority project, and with that our first objective was to keep the clean water clean, and we install either roof gutters or crushed stone drains, and those are piped to an underground outlet and outletted to a clean water stream, in this case Calhoun Creek. Then we also provided a concrete pad with a 2-foot high push wall for Jim to be able to clean the manure off the pad when he is cleaning the bays, and it totally prevented the movement of manure off-site to the creek. So this was a great first project for the Beechers to start with in 2001. 2001 to 2011, I think, is when you did the Conservation Reserve Program. You started with the riparian forest buffer, which was a complement to the work we did down here at the heifer barn. As you can see, the spruces, how tall they are. It's been here for probably 15 years, and it was a great complement to the clean water and the heavy use area protection with the curb and the small filter area that accompanied that. The practices that have been installed enables them to collect the manure right off the gutter cleaner in their barn, and it enters a metal hopper, which then goes down to a hydraulic piston pump. And this piston pump pushes the manure and any other waste produced and pushes it to the waste storage facility. The waste storage facility that is constructed here on site this past year is a concrete sealed structure, and there's no longer any potential for the waste produced on this farm to enter the groundwater and the aquifer. So this pipe is a heavy-duty pipe, able to withstand a lot of pressure, and it's a very huge cost item to install one of these. As you can see, the whole building is concrete. The hopper and the piston pump have to be protected from the elements, and other practices that go along with this is heavy use area protection and roofs and covers. Another practice that was completed is the on-farm secondary containment. And the Beechers had a series of metal fuel tanks, were a little rusty. They had concerns, long-term concerns, and the Comprehensive Nutrient Management Planner did note those as a resource concern. They applied for the practice through the non-point source grant through the Soil and Water Conservation District, as well as the Environmental Quality Incentives Program through NRCS. So those fuel tanks have been removed and replaced with a series of double wall fuel tanks, and they do sit on a concrete pad. Everything has been sized by an engineer, and there are bollards spaced every 4 feet that protect those tanks from being bumped into from any machinery traveling through this area. Along with that, there's safety measures, there's a danger sign, no smoking, an extra light in the early evening hours, so the area is lit up and it's very evident where the tanks are. So the Beechers have now controlled any possibility of fuel leakage down through into the groundwater resource. So this is the concrete waste storage facility where all the manure wastes are currently pumped to. And this pit is sealed. All joints have been sealed, everything caulked that had to be caulked. There's a tremendous amount of high quality standards that have to be met with this practice to assure there's no leaking of manure down through the soil profile. This pit itself is 14 feet high by 102 feet in diameter. It's capable of holding 858,000 gallons of manure. And it's a fantastic practice, and we also looked at the safety measures that have to be taken to make sure no animals or humans enter the pit. As you can see, the chain link fence excludes anybody from going down and falling into the pit. And if an accident does happen, there's also life preservers in 2 areas just in case. With the amount of gallons this holds, it enables the Beechers to spread the manure in an environmentally sound manner. The nutrient management plan is a very intensive plan that each one of the fields were soil sampled and to see what nutrients are in the soil, and then depending on the crop being grown, it allows Jim to correctly apply the amount of manure that's needed to balance the crop, the nutrients, the crop nutrient needs, the manure application, and the potential for any additional commercial fertilizers. So many of these operations see $1 savings because they're reducing the amount of commercial fertilizers that they are applying to the crop field. So even though it's a lot of manure, it's actually brown gold because it's worth a lot of money what's sitting in that pit right there. And the other practices that have been installed that complement the waste storage facility is a concrete pad with roll curbs. If there's any leakage or spillage, which does happen when filling the tank spreader, that it can be scraped up, maintained, and without any of the manure, again, going down through the soil profile. That's what we're trying to protect, is that groundwater resource. Everything is connected by access roads. You can see this is a hard surface that can be scraped and cleaned. But at this point, there should be minimal amount of any waste on this hardened surface as the access road. In the background, you'll see the fence that allows Jim to have the animals exit the barn out into a grassed area so they can exercise. And with that fence, there's a trail and walkway. that is the same surface as the access road, just a different practice standard for NRCS and the Soil and Water Conservation District. And then farther in the background, there's that graded gravel area. That's where the previous waste storage facility was, that earthen pit. And there's steps that have to be taken to correctly close that pit. And that was designed by the engineer. That had to be cleaned out totally of any manure waste, and then acceptable fill material graded back into it, and then the final grading of that site. So overall, this project has been a fantastic project for the Beecher Farm. We've addressed all the resource concerns that were outlined in the Comprehensive Nutrient Management Plan. And just to point out too, the Nutrient Management Plan, as I stated, does address all the crop fields. And the Beechers on their own have been utilizing no-till system to reduce any potential for erosion on their crop fields, and have been integrating, when they can, the use of cover crops as a fall protection on the soil surface going into the winter. So there's a lot of different practices that they do on their own, and I do want to recognize that. And in between all of this, and I think it was 2014, Jim, we applied for the Stream Bank Stabilization Project. And there was in 2012-13 a series of storm events ripped through Calhoun Creek and actually destroyed some of the buffer that we had installed in the mid-2000s. And that project itself, we regraded the stream bank and installed rock riprap to protect it so it won't erode back into the buffer area and the adjacent area along the length of the creek. And then partnering with the Soil and Water Conservation District and I believe Upper Susquehanna Coalition to plant additional trees and increase the length of that buffer. So now there's quite a few hundred feet of riparian forest buffer that's been established between the farmstead area proper and Calhoun Creek. So over 20 years, there's been a tremendous amount of best management practices that have been implemented on this farm to ensure the potential for future generations that will be able to operate this in an environmentally sound manner. Thank you to the Beechers for doing that.
My name's Ethan. We've been milking cows for 30 years on Jasmar Farms. With the way milk prices are and stuff, it's hard to fix some of the issues that need to be fixed on the farm. That's where the USDA comes into play. This would be the ag bag pad, and the problem with this is spring and fall, it just 2 foot of mud out here. And all that washes down into the Otsego Creek, or could wash down to it. And there again is why the USDA could come in and help. It just, for a farmer, it costs too much money to put concrete here and fix the problem. This would be the barnyard where the cows hang out. The problem with this is it's just gravel. And for the cows, they get it in their feet, and it ends up being a lot of dead cows for us. And when it rains a lot, everything that's in this soil goes downhill, and there again to the Otsego Creek. This would be the manure storage area, just all gravel. There's no concrete, no nothing with it. We ended up having to start doing it this way because in the summer, if we're not mowing hay at the time we need to spread manure, we just have no place to put it. The problem with this pit would be, one, it leaches everywhere, and for 2 I can only fit about a month's worth of manure in it at a time. There again, why if we could get some help to get a pit in where we're not leaching all the bad stuff into creeks and into the soil that we don't want there, and it would benefit me for when we mow hay. If you put manure down, it grows better for my 2nd, 3rd, and 4th cutting. The same as cornfields. If I can put manure on them when we do rye seed after we chop corn, it helps for that to grow. Behind me would be the compost pile for any of the cows that die on the farm. The biggest problem with this is it just stinks, and everything can leach into the ground and into the waters, and if we had a building to put the cows in to let them decompose and keep it, all of that stuff inside, that would be a big help. This here is the Otsego Creek, and the biggest problem in this part is the river, when it gets high with water, floods, whatever, keeps eating out into my cornfield. And with that, you just get a lot of sediment in the water, and I miss half my field. I used to plant corn just about in the middle of the creek, and now we stand here. This would be my fuel storage for the farm. The problem with that being, if we had a spill or any kind of leaks, it just leaches right into the ground. So if we had a secondary storage facility or containment area, that would be perfect.
The farmstead of focus is located within the Otsego Creek watershed and is considered part of the Susquehanna River Basin. Sediment, nutrients, and pathogens that are exported from farms through leaching, erosion, and/or runoff from storm events have the potential to negatively impact not just local watersheds, but also the Chesapeake Bay. In an effort to reduce pollution from what is considered the headwaters of the Susquehanna River and subsequently the Chesapeake Bay watershed, Otsego County Soil and Water Conservation District works with local producers to identify resource concerns and develop potential treatments or agricultural best management practices, referred to as BMPs. The planned BMPs are tailor-made for the particular farm's infrastructure and management objectives and are developed in conjunction with farm managers and/or owners' input. Although the conservation plan for the farm we are discussing is quite extensive, we will be selecting a few of the major resource concerns identified while performing site assessments at this location. Silage leachate management is another area of focus for many of our local farms and is second only to manure storage on management's infrastructure priority list. Because leachate collection systems can come with a hefty price tag, the systems are rarely in place in small to medium-sized farms. Leachate is a liquid byproduct of fermented silage, can be extremely acidic, and can cause vegetative and fish kills, among other environmental destruction. According to management, the farm we are working with typically produces and stores 6 haylage and 8 corn silage ag bags per growing season. Each bag weighs approximately 250 tons and has a 200 by 12 footprint. The optimum moisture range to store silage at is around 65%, with the dry matter fraction making up only 35%. Quickly doing the math, that means about 2,275 tons of that silage is composed of water, which becomes highly acidic and can readily be seen oozing from the bags, especially during winter and spring months. Due to cost constraints, the farm has no leachate collection system in place. As part of the conservation plan we developed, a proposed concrete pad with a leachate collection system that pumps the collected contents to the centralized manure storage is planned for implementation. Not only will the nutrients and acidifying properties of the leachate be collected, they will also be used as part of the nutrient management plan to be allocated to cropland that is low in nutrients, satisfying crop demands while also saving on fertilizer costs and potential nutrient exportation to the Susquehanna River and Chesapeake Bay watersheds. The most obvious resource concern on many farms is the area considered the Livestock Heavy Use Area, or HUA. This is also considered the barnyard at this farm. It is the area that typically gets used and abused by animal traffic to the point where vegetation becomes devoid and ground cover is dominated by mud and feces. This environment causes a host of obvious resource concerns relating to water quality, but also subjects the animals themselves to medical issues such as hoof health problems. Compounding these issues is the fact that no clean water exclusion measures are in place to keep precipitation and roof runoff from further contributing to the barnyard degradation and polluted runoff. Therefore, as a planned action to reduce the detrimental effects of the confined animal operation, a covered barnyard with clean water exclusion practices is planned for implementation. The planned action will reduce animal health concerns and contaminated runoff potential, as well as provide the farm manager with an upgraded facility for years to come. The second area of focus is animal mortality management. Due to rising costs associated with rendering services, many local producers have turned to on-site animal disposal. Environmental concerns, including pathogen contamination and nutrient runoff as a result of farm management's inability to properly compost and or bury the carcasses, can have detrimental effects on nearby water resources. Again, the soils at the farm are well drained and aren't conducive to properly managing a significant number of 1,000-pound plus animal carcasses through simple burial. Therefore, for the case of the subject farm, it is planned that an animal mortality facility is implemented that can properly compost animal mortalities to temperatures sufficient to kill pathogens and harmful bacteria while also containing decomposition byproducts. The facility will provide management with a long-term solution to managing mortalities while significantly reducing pests, nuisance odors, disposal costs, and environmental resource concerns. One last issue we'd like to touch on for our farm tour is stream corridor management. At this farm, as with many others, a large swath of cropland has been actively eroding into the Otsego Creek and is another focus of management's concern. An estimated 250 feet of cropland has been claimed by the Otsego Creek, which is beginning to eat into the farm's corn production, which is used to feed their herd. Without proper treatment, the active erosion at this site will increase in severity and can contribute tons of sediment exported to the watershed during each high-flow event. It is also an economic concern as lost corn ground equates to lost revenue. Upon discussions with management, we have planned a riparian forest buffer with native tree and shrub establishment and stream bank stabilization practices utilizing riprap reinforcements to provide a long-term solution to stream bank erosion.
This concludes the tour of my farm, and I look forward to working with the USDA and district on some of the problems and concerns that I have.
Hello, my name is Daniel Zimmerman, forester for Otsego Soil and Water Conservation District. I would like to outline and discuss briefly with you the following 10 benefits of Otsego County's forestry program. The first one is stewardship forest management plan. Otsego County owns over 3,000 acres of forest land. County ownership imparts responsibility to the land itself and to the public. Forest property ownership responsibility can best be described as one of stewardship. But just what is stewardship? My definition is the conservation of your property's natural resources and attributes, features over a period of time. Conservation can best be thought of as the wise use of a natural resource. Having forest management plans are an important step to good county forest stewardship. But just what is a forest management plan? A plan can be just a statement of why the county owns forest property, just what the county expects to obtain from the property, and what future goals or benefits the county wants to receive. Benefits and goals. The overall future condition of county property should focus on the continuous production of high-quality forest products from commercially important softwood and hardwood species. Encouraging and promoting biodiversity helps overall forest and ecosystem health. Resiliency of the forest through diversity is another future benefit in the face of possible threats from invasive species, native pathogens, and possible climate change. It is envisioned a future forest with 3 or more successional stages within forest stands. These are seedlings, saplings, pole timber, and mature forest. Forest management is a comprehensive science that allows for the maintenance of ecosystem health, sustainable growth and harvest of forest products, administration, aesthetics, and resource protection. Otsego County forests are a public resource that is managed for timber production, outdoor recreation, wildlife, water, and natural resource conservation. By taking this multi-purpose management approach, the people of Otsego County will be able to benefit from the natural resources on county land and give the residents the opportunity to enjoy their public land. The second benefit of the forestry program is forest health. Forest management and planning of Otsego County forest land includes the identification of potential risk to the forest and highlights management options that may increase the forest's ability to cope with the pressure of changing present and future conditions. Evaluations include A. Forest diversity and composition, species diversity, species suitability, tree health, and insect and disease threats, including invasive and native. B. Forest structure, structural diversity, standing and down deadwood, and tree crowns and spacing. C. Forest regeneration, desirable reproduction, species suitability to the growing site, interfering plants both native and invasive, and white-tailed deer impacts. D. Site level risk, moisture or drought stress, extreme rainfall, other extreme weather, and shorter and milder winters. The third benefit, wildlife. What we do with the county forest has a substantial effect on the entire ecosystem, wildlife included. Managed forests provide higher quality habitat for wildlife than unmanaged forests, and at the same time can produce quality timber. Wildlife has 4 basic requirements: food, cover, water, and space to live and reproduce. Different wildlife species require different types of food and cover and different stages of plant succession to meet their basic needs. Variations in plant composition and structure, forest age, and soil productivity determine the type and number of wildlife species present on a property. The vegetative conditions within a successional stage can be altered through forest management. Managing county forest resources requires an understanding of the various forestry silvical systems and their effects on wildlife. The fourth benefit of the forestry program is water and soils. Healthy managed county forests lead to healthy watersheds and soils for Otsego County residents. Water and soil quality protection results from quality management of forests. Forestry BMPs are effective in protecting and sustaining water and soil quality and must be implemented correctly by experienced forestry staff in logging and other forest land uses. Implementation of BMPs is a core element of any forest harvesting land use plan. The fifth benefit of the forestry program is recreation. Otsego County forest lands offer considerable opportunities for public recreation. Most of the parcels have access that can be used by the public and also offer parking in varying degrees. With additional work and publicity, public usage can be enhanced and increased. Current public recreational activities include hunting, fishing, photography, hiking, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, snowmobiling, all-terrain vehicle riding, and camping. A comprehensive recreation plan for county lands per parcel is recommended. The sixth benefit of the forestry program is carbon sequestration. Otsego County should consider a carbon sequestration as an additional source of income for the forestry program. Consider, one tree can absorb 48 pounds of carbon per year. 1 acre of mature forest land can absorb up to 1 ton of carbon per year. Young forests sequester carbon at higher rates and amounts than mature forests. Sustainable forestry practices by an experienced forester, like improving forest health, thinning, planting, and the Young Forest Initiative, leads to increased forest carbon sequestration and thereby contributing to mitigation of climate change. Enrollment in programs like the Nature Conservancy's Working Woodlands can provide access to carbon markets where the county can gain revenue from selling carbon credits. Enhanced revenue can also be obtained through certification of county resources as FSC forest products. The seventh benefit of the forestry program is timber sales. They generate income. Using timber harvesting to promote forest health, regeneration, invasive mitigation, wildlife enhancement, recreation, density control, optimum stand stocking levels, stand conversion, and quality residual stand upgrade. The eighth benefit of the forestry program are property lines. Property line maintenance and marking, identification resolves the following issues: timber trespass, firewood trespass, encroachment, forest management activity boundaries, and improves access. The ninth benefit is aesthetics. Proper implementation of best management practices will lead to good aesthetics and hence good public perception of forest activities. The 10th benefit of the forestry program is the special programs for the public. Cutting-edge forestry, conservation initiatives, and practices through working with organizations such as Cornell Cooperative Extension, the New York Forest Owners Association, the Society of American Foresters, and other conservation land use organizations. One last point I would like to make is the opportunity cost to the county of not continuing the forestry program. Opportunity cost can be defined as the value of the alternative option you have given up after making a choice. Examples of costs: a forest less resilient to climate change, loss of biodiversity and resulting ecosystem health, loss of forest health and eco-productivity, increased invasive and native pathogens, and their ultimate cost to control, poor forest regeneration, less wildlife and wildlife diversity, less recreational opportunities and access, loss of carbon sequestration monies in excess of $40,000, loss of forest timber value through less growth and quality productivity, and lost timber sale monies, including permanent loss of all white ash timber stumpage, approximately $10,000 or greater. Otsego County's forest lands are a public treasure that will benefit greatly from science-based forest management. Over 35 years ago, I worked on Otsego County's forest lands, and it's with great respect and pleasure that I get to work on them again today. I ask you for your continued support of the forestry program.